All right. Palantir. Start off with an easy one for you, or maybe a hard one, maybe a perplexing one. Cathie Wood bought 4.3 million shares before you got on the stream. Why do you think Cathie?
What did you say to her? Yeah. What did you say to her?
What did you say to her to convince her?
Make her buy the shares.
So okay. First off, it never made sense to me why she would sell Palantir, because at the end of the day, she's supposed to be all about innovation, right? In the more you dig into the Palantir story, and she's supposed to have this amazing team of these researchers and whatnot, right? The more you dig into Palantir, the more you go down that rabbit hole and you realize, oh my gosh, their product's amazing. Like, you listen to people in the industry and you're like, dude, this is huge. And so for her to sell out of that stock never made sense. And you could say, well, it was losing money. And so that's why she sold. She's the the queen of buying companies that lose money. So I was just like, when she sold that, I was just baffled. I was like, why would you do that? It's a growth company that has an amazing product, a crazy opportunity at the cross sections of data and artificial intelligence. And it's just such a perfect Cathie Wood stock. For her to sell was just kind of like baffling. Now, let me say this because I know there's probably a lot of different opinions. I think it's better we have her on our team for the Palantir Bulls than not have her on our team.
Why?
So she's still a subject of conversation. She brings a lot of attention. And so from the stock price perspective, that's one way of looking at it, right? She's going to bring a lot more attention to the stock price. She goes on CNBC and Bloomberg, and people love to talk about Palantir. So I'm sure, especially if she builds this out into a position where she's got tens of millions of shares, which is a possibility.
Which is she going to do? She's probably going to do.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of people talking about it, and they're going to want to talk to her, and they're going to have her on CNBC and Bloomberg. And, hey, saw you bought Palantir. What's your thoughts around this? Alex Carr, blah, 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 like they used to do with Elon Musk, right? It's not to that Tesla level, but it's going to be talked about. And at the end of the day, those finance channels, CNBC and Bloomberg, all that stuff, right, that she'll go on and talk, a lot of executives watch those channels, a lot of high net worth individuals that will then look into Palantir maybe a little deeper. And if there's one issue we've had with Palantir, it's sales and marketing, getting the name out there more. What is this Palantir company? What do they do? How can they help my business? Just having her be a subject of conversation that pops up everywhere, I think it's a good thing rather than a bad thing. So I'm happy to have her as a shareholder again. And I hope they ask her about it, and I hope she talks a lot about it and brings more attention to what Palantir's product is, why it's so great. And I hope she'll be able to convey that in messaging that's pretty short, because as you guys know, when, for CNBC, Bloomberg, those channels, when they ask about a stock, like they don't want you to talk about it for 30 minutes. They want you to talk about it for 30 seconds. And so she's going to have to somehow convey why Palantir's value proposition is amazing in that 30 seconds. And then hopefully executives will take notice and say, let me look into this company. What are they up to here? So anyways, yeah, definitely I'd rather have her be a friend than a foe. I guess you can say that.
I have a theory about
I think the question is, what do you think about Karp's poetry?
Okay, that's not the question. That was not the question.
AKA his shareholder letters.
Did you read them?
I do. Karp's, I've always had an opinion of him.
You're not a real fan of Karp. I know from your previous videos, you never really loved him like me and like other people, right?
Yeah.
This guy doesn't talk about numbers, stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's the best person to talk about the stock.
Okay, the CEO.
Correct.
Yeah, he's certainly phenomenal with his philosophy and his opinions and the way the world works and all these sorts of things. And I think he does capture a lot of people's attention in mindsets, and I think that is a beautiful thing. Yeah, and I think that's good. But at the same time, sometimes I want to hear about what's the company up to, and not these big subject things about Russia and Ukraine and all this
freedom
different subjects. So go ahead.
The quarter just came. Palantir achieved GAAP profitability. The stock is up 30% in 2 days. They're going to be GAAP profitable for the rest of the year. Revenue beat 525 million versus 506 million. What are your raw thoughts on the earnings we just saw, and why do you think there is some momentum behind the stock in the past couple of days?
Okay, so I mean, I was really impressed, really impressed. The revenue growth was even better than I thought. I was very confident that they were going to beat on revenue, but I wasn't expecting that big of a beat. That was really impressive. So to see a company like that beat in this environment, it's a very tough environment for revenue growth. I mean, when you have Apple struggling to even grow revenues, you're in a very tough environment for growing revenue. So I was really impressed. And then obviously they're making a lot of income off of investing cash in treasuries, which is, just a kind of a beautiful thing right now. Karp's really keeping expenses in line, which I love, except for sales and marketing, which I give the okay on, because obviously we know that the main issue with Palantir has really been getting the product out there more, getting it seen, getting executives to understand it and want to sign up for it. So it seems like he's definitely aggressively spending there. So I was impressed. I was really happy with the earnings. They have a long way to go with their profitability story, in my opinion, a long way to go. But this was the quarter for the year I was most worried about, the first quarter. I'm much more confident even next quarter, and certainly much more confident in 3Q, 4Q. This was the one I was a little, boy, are they going to be, especially after the last conference call, Karp mentioning on the last conference call, he was mentioning, he never said we're going to be profitable on a quarterly basis here on out. He said on a yearly basis. So I'm like, crap, man, is he expecting a loss? Then as once we heard the S&P 500 inclusion details come out, and then I saw him on a few interviews, I was like, oh, okay, like they're going to be profitable. They're good now. And so that became a little
Jeremy,
more...
you were in Tesla when the S&P 500 inclusion happened. Can you describe a little bit about what that was like when that happened? And do you think the same, obviously not the same stock price and stuff, do you think there'll be a similar thing of hedge fund managers saying, oh, we got to grab some Palantir before it gets there if they're profitable for the rest of the year?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a kind of an easy arbitrage for a lot of fund managers. And so they're going to look at it and they're going to say, the more Palantir gets closer to that S&P 500 inclusion, the more you're going to see money continue to inflow more and more, because then it's an easy arbitrage. You understand, like, once this company gets in, there's going to be a massive amount of money that has to come into Palantir. And so naturally, you get these inflows and just continued inflows into the stock as you get closer. And so if Palantir puts up another profitable quarter, that's going to be the next level for Palantir in terms of inflow and money, right? And so, yeah, I don't think the money coming into Palantir stock for the next 12 to 24 months is going to slow. I think it's just going to be it's one of the few times you see a perfect setup from a long-term and a short-term perspective. The long-term stories there that we're all excited about, us all, longs. And then you got the short-term crowd that's more focused on the next 12 months looking at this and like, ooh, S&P 500 inclusion could be coming, maybe the beginning of 2024, end of this year, maybe beginning of 2024, something like that. And so, so it's a beautiful setup. I got to say, it's probably the most attractive setup from a short and long-term perspective in the market right now, in my opinion, at least that I know of. So
I think I want to point out that Tesla, well, it ran up. Me and Carlos were watching it. We're investors for a long time, but I think it's lower than the S&P inclusion price right now.
We have to do it.
So
you'd have to divide it by 15.
November 2020. I don't think so.
No, it was around 500 or so, and then ran up higher. And we are under that price because there's a 3x split that we have to account for. So I think we're at 450-ish. So
right, it was.
I'm just saying that anyone who thinks the S&P is the solution to all your worries, it might not be, because I think we're under
that's
that price right now.
after almost a year.
So right, so you better sell if you expect to sell at some point, because that puppy may be going right back down.